10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Christian's giving me the stare down. He's giving me the stare down over here.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good
I
morning.
get my screen all set up, so
He's doing this. He's doing guys, got my shirt on here. Got my special shirt from the Philippines all right here. This is where we stayed. If you want, go to YouTube, look it up. This is where we were, Christian. And I want to give a shout out. We are doing something a little different this week. We are starting to train Grace, who's one of our VAs. And so give her some love and support as she is working through some things. She is a freaking nervous wreck, all just to let you know. She is nervous as can be for the speakers who come on here and they have to speak and they get nervous. She is nervous as well. So give her some love. Put a 5 in the chat. Put some love in the chat. Put some hearts in there. These VAs all are doing amazing stuff. And so we're training somebody new so that way we can get Jay doing some other things. So Grace, you are doing amazing. Just giving you a little love here, as I know it gets a little nerve wracking. Trying to get that countdown, get everybody in. There's a lot of moving parts that come into our show as we continue to grow, and we get it on Facebook and YouTube. We're just doing more and more things so that way people can watch the recording. People can come get our show notes. People could follow the speakers. Like, so if you want Christian's information, his website, his link, after you hear his message today, you're like, you know what? I need to be around this guy. So we're creating more and more value for this show. So appreciate your all's patience as these ladies and Grace is growing and learning with everything today or this week and the future week. So anyways, good job, Grace. Good job. So good morning to you, Christian. What's up, brother? He's still working through it.
I think I'm on mute.
It's the fifth Wednesday. We don't get this fifth Wednesday very often
It's
when
once a
we look at
quarter.
the years throughout the year. But you're one of our leaders that always steps in and helps us out. We got to hear from you last week, and then I was like, oh, good, Christian's on again this Wednesday. So that way I had a lot of great comments and feedbacks. Obviously, I wasn't on the show last where I was on it, but I was in the Philippines. But a lot of good material that you shared with us. You always give us that perspective. So good morning to you, man. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Well, I appreciate you and being on again. Guys, there's nobody on camera. If you have the ability, except I see Jackie, Karen, and John, the standbys, but if you have the ability, we love to have you on camera because it just makes the show so much more fun for everybody.
Good to see our
Uh,
shining faces.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So with that said, guys, I want to talk. What's up, Mario? Look at this. D's coming on. Everybody's coming on. Perfect, guys. So good morning. Good early morning to some of you. For some of you, I'm new, but my name is Christian Tiessen. I have a company called Redtail Financial. I believe that real estate is one of the best tools for building wealth. And I believe that agents have this incredible advantage built in. We have a lot of real estate agents on the show, probably most of the people on the show. And so the goal of my company is to help get agents financially positioned to be able to take advantage of that advantage. And today, what I'm going to be doing is talking to you guys. It is a mindset show, but I'm a tactics guy. I love tactics. So I'm going to be sharing some mindset shifts for you, but I'm going to do it in a tactical type way as well. So what I'm going to do right now, guys, is I'm going to run over to my screen. For those of you that know me, you know I like slides and stuff, but I promise you, it's not the normal type of slideshow where there's a bunch of text and it's boring. You got to read it. My slides are pretty good. If I might say so myself. But what I want to talk to you guys about today is the three roles that really any business owner, I'm going to be talking to real estate agents, but I know like Diane, for example, you're not in real estate. You can apply this to your business and your mindsets in your business as well. You'll just have to shift the language a little bit. So we are talking about the three roles in the real estate business or in any business. Now, I want to ask you guys, maybe we could get some interaction in the chat. If when you started as an entrepreneur, when you started as a real estate agent, if at least part of why you became an entrepreneur, why you became self-employed, was to do something like this, to break free from the cage, to become your own boss, to make your own freedom, right? To bet on yourself and to see if you can make it in the world. Was that at least in part one of the reasons why? So Jesse says yes. Anybody else? Anybody else? For me, it was a big part, right? I had a job for 14 years, literal 8 to 4:30, clock in, clock out, 5 days a week. And for me, one of the three major reasons I got into real estate was because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? And what I have found, guys, is that for so many people, they start getting into business for themselves to be an entrepreneur to get that freedom, but they really end up like this, right? They end up as a trapped bird in a cage because what ends up happening for a lot of people is they build a job they cannot escape from. And so, what I'm going to be talking about today is a way to kind of shift your mindsets to start getting into a position where you do create a job or a career or a business where you can step away from. Now, the reason why this is so important is because what I've found is that a lot of business owners, they don't slow down long enough to see what's actually holding them back. You know, I was doing a strategy call with Brock, and I believe Jim Morris was on it a few weeks ago. And one of the things that Jim said is, hey, you know, Brock, sometimes we have to slow down to speed up. Does that sound familiar, Brock? Do you remember that? Yeah, absolutely. Right. And so here's the truth, guys, is that in our business, we can't fix what we don't see. And what happens is we get so caught up in the production mode of business is that we get so caught up in that mode that it becomes hard to spot opportunities to make a change, to create actual freedom in the business. And so we get caught up in this cycle where without the clarity in the different three roles of business, every solution that we come up with just feels like it's more work, right? And sometimes it doesn't feel like progress. Sometimes it feels like we're just adding and adding and adding onto the load. And what happens there is when that happens, everything becomes urgent in the business. Everything's a crisis. Everything has to be done now. And we begin acting in reaction mode instead of building mode. And the longer we operate in this reaction chaos mode, the harder it becomes to make confident business decisions and decisions that will actually be strategic that will move our business forward, right? So when we understand the different roles in business, it helps us to prioritize the right work at whatever stage of your business you're in or whatever stage of the day you're in. And we'll talk about that more in just a second. You also get to a point when we adopt these three roles and understand them where we stop wasting time trying to fix symptoms and we get to the root causes of the problems and the struggles and the bottlenecks in the business. And what I have found is that most people, most entrepreneurs I talk to, they have a misbalance of these three roles in their business. And when we're able to get those roles into balance, and by the way, little side note here, guys, I'm not a big fan of the whole like everything needs balance all the time. Everything has to be perfectly balanced. The truth is, there's going to be seasons where there's going to be things that are taking more time, and there's going to be seasons where we shift, right? Sometimes, like, our health becomes more important to us. Sometimes the business becomes more important. Sometimes, if you have a newborn, the baby becomes most important, right? So there's always going to be this give and take. But if we don't understand these different roles, then the give and take is more chaotic and it's not structured and it doesn't necessarily build something that is going to be super beneficial for us. So, with that being said, let me go to the next slide here. So, I want you to imagine this. Imagine a restaurant owner, someone that wants to open a restaurant, right? And whoops, let me go back a slide here. They're going to open a restaurant and they're going to open this restaurant on their own. They're going to be a solopreneur and do everything themselves. So, what would they have to do in that business? They're going to be the chef, right? They're going to be the greeter at the business. Hola, shout out to Rosario. I hope you're feeling better and I hope you're doing better, Rosario. They're going to be the greeter, right? They're going to be the waiter. They're going to be the cleaner of the business, cleaning the tables, bookkeeping, like Diane says, right? Cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the hopefully they're cleaning the bathrooms and washing their hands before they go back to cooking, hopefully, right? And they're going to do all the marketing in the business. They're going to be developing all those social media posts, sending out the text messages to the customers. They're going to do all these things in their business. They're going to do all the shopping for the business. They're going to do all of the entrepreneurial duties, strategizing on ways to grow the business. And what ends up happening if someone was going to open a restaurant and play all these roles in their business, this is what's going to happen. They're going to get burnt out. I want to ask you guys, put a one in the chat if you ever felt burnt out in your business. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I promise we're gonna get into it. This isn't just like a theory here. We're gonna get into the meat here in just a second here. But see, what happens, guys, is once you understand these roles and you understand how to shift between the roles, business turns into something more like this, something that brings us joy, brings us happiness, and brings us energy. So I experienced this in my life. I worked at a 9 to 5 job, like I said, and I developed a certain skill set. I started in sales, worked up to sales manager, sales director, eventually was in charge of all of our international accounts and all of the key accounts in the US. So basically in charge of worldwide sales. And what I realized when I shifted into real estate was that being a business owner and being an employee are two completely different skill sets. Selling is a skill set. And most of the training you will see in the real estate industry, and probably in a lot of industries, is all based around the selling, the income, the producing portion of the business. But that is a very different skill set from being an entrepreneur. I've got notes here, by the way, just so I don't skip anything. So bear with me, bear with me. So here's the truth, guys. In the beginning, with any business, you're going to play all three of these roles, right? And we'll get into these roles in just a second. But as you grow, the goal isn't to necessarily escape the roles, it's to learn how to integrate them and use them strategically so that you can grow your business in a way that is sustainable, in a way that fills your battery instead of drains your battery. So let's talk about these three roles. The first role is the producer. We're going to dive into details in just a second. The next role is the coordinator, and the next role is the strategist. Now, what is the producer? The producer is the engine of the business, right? The producer is the one that's doing all of the work that makes the money. In real estate, this means showing homes, writing offers, negotiating, managing clients, chasing closings, doing all that stuff. And this is the role, again, that every agent starts in. But it is very, very easy to get stuck and trapped in this role and never expand beyond it, right? So the truth is that the producer role is critical in the business, especially as a service-based business, because without the producer role, there's no income, there's no clients, there's no revenue, and there's no business. The producer actually creates momentum and drives the business forward. But here's the problem is they are the business. Now that's both a blessing and a curse, right? Because what happens is they drive the business, but every dollar depends on their effort. And so the producer is constantly running, constantly running. And if they stop, so does everything else in the business. And the trap here, guys, one of the hidden costs is that producers often will confuse movement with progress. They measure success by activity and income, but not necessarily efficiency or systems in their business. And often it's easy to mistake busyness for being effective and productive, right? So again, over time, this creates burnout, creates inconsistency in the business because like in real estate, for example, if you're super busy, you've got 4, 5, 6 contracts going, you're going to slow down on certain activities like cold calling or doing whatever you do to lead gen, right? And so in real estate, we see this crazy wave in the business very often. Now, let's go back to my slides here. So one of the major problems with the producer role is that we are constantly trading time for money. This is the big limiting factor with being in the producer role. Now, the next role is the coordinator. Now, the coordinator plays a different role in the business. And again, we'll shift through these as we go in our business. But the coordinator brings kind of clarity to the chaos of the business. They create efficiency, right? They build tracking, organizing, scheduling. They systematize the work so that the producer can actually run smoother and predictably. And that is one of the key benefits of the coordinator role is that consistency in the business, building those systems, setting standards, keeping the business running on time, and delivering a consistent and a great experience for your clients. But just like the producer can kind of get confused and lost in the weeds, the coordinator can as well, right? So sometimes the coordinator, and I have this problem, this is something I struggle with, is they can confuse organization and systems with progress as well. See, we feel productive sometimes because things look neat and things look tidy. My OCD kicks in, guys. Like I misspell a word in my Word doc. It's really not that big of a deal, but I go back and I've got to make all the formatting look exactly the same, right? So sometimes we mistake organization with progress. But sometimes what that does is all it does is it creates well-organized stagnation. And see, the thing with the coordinator role is we're actually elevating through kind of the three levels of value. But see, with the coordinator, what we're doing is we are trading systems and processes for money. And so it's a little bit more leverageable than just trading our time for money. Now, the last role, the strategist. The strategist, I got to move a little quick because I'm running on time. The strategist is the visionary in the business. This is the person that steps back far enough to see the bigger picture of the business, right? They focus on direction and growth and leverage and opportunity in their business. You know, Brock going out to the Philippines was a perfect example of being a strategist in his business. Yes, he's doing work out there, he's playing that producer role, but he's also looking at a bigger picture for where he wants the business to go. And so while the producer works in the business, the coordinators and the strategists work on the business. And in fact, the strategist works above the business level, right? They've got the long-term vision. They are big picture thinkers with a focus on outcomes, not necessarily individual activities. The strategist gets to see patterns and opportunities and possibilities in their business that they would miss if they were just stuck in producer role constantly working and grinding, right? So the strength here as a strategist is they create leverage, they create long-term vision. And the strategist can align people, it can align your systems, and it can align your capital, your money in a clear direction to get to the larger goals, those long-term goals that you're shooting for. The strategist is the highest leverage time spent because their decisions, your decisions in the strategist role, multiply your time and your income and your impact on your clients, right? But here's the danger with being in strategist role only is that we can get lost in ideas. Again, this is something I struggle with. Brock could be a testament to this. A lot of times I struggle with execution, right? I'm very heady. I'm in the ideas, the strategy, the overall picture. But we can get lost in those ideas and neglect execution. But again, we need that execution, right? We need to be the producer role because we need to bring in that money. We need to bring in the income, pay the mortgage. My bank mortgage cannot be paid by a great strategy. It has to be paid by income production, right? So um, the goal here, guys, is to lead from strategy, right? The goal of the strategist is to lead from strategy, to guide the producer and the coordinator roles with clarity and with intention in the business. And when we can step into this role on purpose and strategically, we can stop just like chasing growth, chasing clients, and we can start directing that growth in a way that is meaningful and scalable. So, the great thing about being a strategist is we are trading our creativity for money. Now, here's the thing that I want you guys to notice here. When we are trading our time for money, we are trading a scarce resource for money. This is the producer role, right? We all only have 24 hours. There's only so much we can do in the day. When we trade systems for money, this is a limited role, but it is much less limited than our time because now we're leveraging other people's times. We're leveraging systems to get some of our time back. And the beautiful part about trading our creativity for money is our creativity is unlimited. When you do something creative in your business, when you create strategy and you use that to grow your business, you do not give up the strategy like you give up your time when you're in producer role. The strategy is unlimited, and this is where true leverage starts. So this is what it looks like in our business. I've got the beautiful Venn diagram here. The red represents the producer role, the green represents the manager role or the coordinator role, and the yellow represents the strategist role. Now, the truth is as a small business owner, we have to sit right in the middle here, right? We have to play all these roles. But what happens, let me adjust my screen here just a second, guys. How are we doing here? Is this making sense? Cool. Seeing the head nods. Yes. Awesome. Cool. Okay. So let me adjust my screen here. So there's a book, guys. Many of you have probably read it actually. It's called The One Thing by Gary Keller. Put a one in the chat if you've read The One Thing by Gary Keller. Great book to read. Awesome. So the premise of the book, guys, and most of you know this because you've read it. The premise of the book is the power of focusing on one thing at a time. And I remember the analogy he uses. He talks about a computer and how people think that computers can multitask. But in reality, what a computer is doing is it's switching between tasks very quickly. It's switching to a task, doing a very little portion, switching to the next, doing a very little, and it can do that very quickly. But the reality as humans is we can't do that. See, scientific research shows that when we switch tasks, it takes up to 23 minutes to get deep into focus on that task. And so what we have to do as an entrepreneur is we have to do this. When we are in producer mode, we have to be in producer mode. When we are in coordinator mode, we have to be in coordinator mode. And continuing that, when we're in strategist mode, we need to be in strategist mode. And again, I'm talking business here, guys. This could be your life as well, right? This is something, again, I struggle with in our modern world with the cell phones, right? Being present with my son when I'm hanging out with my son, that urge of the cell phone to pick up the cell phone and do some Twitter browsing, right? But this is very important because we cannot do multiple things at one time. We have to focus on where we want to be focusing at any given time if we want to have the best results, right? And so here's the reality, guys, is that we can't really play that, we can't put that dart in the middle like I showed you just a second ago. What's going to happen, especially early in business, is it's going to look something like this. That producer role is going to take the vast majority of our time of the business, right? And maybe the strategist role is very little, if any, at the beginning. But as we begin to shift, we want to start expanding these higher level roles. See, the next kind of level to get to is starting to expand that coordinator role. So the production role kind of slows down a little bit, the busy work. And when I say production, guys, this isn't just closing on deals, right? This is email. This is everything that has to do with servicing your clients, sending emails, follow-ups, all of that. See, when we move to this next level where we start integrating the coordinator role a little bit more, now we're setting up systems, right? We're setting up automated follow-ups. We're setting up TCs and VAs and admins, maybe buyer's agents to work with us, right? And so we're able to shrink that amount of busy work that we do and expand that coordinator role. And then again, as we keep shifting and moving through these roles, we're able to start expanding more that strategist role. And again, this is where the leverage is in your business. Eventually, what you want to do, let me rephrase that. If you want to scale your business in a way that will prevent burnout, what you want to do eventually is to get here, right? It's to spend the bulk of your time or a lot of your time in that strategist role, good amount of time in that coordinator role, managing other people below you, and the smallest amount of time doing the busy work, the medial tasks that don't really move the needle, right? So I want to give you guys a framework. You've probably heard of this. Has anybody ever heard, put an E in the chat if you ever heard of this, the Eisenhower Matrix. Has anyone heard of the Eisenhower Matrix? Maybe you don't know it by name. You've probably seen something like it. So the Eisenhower Matrix is this. It is a matrix showing urgent, not urgent, important, and not important work. And so what we can do is we can delegate and decide what each task that we're doing throughout the day, where it fits into this matrix. So let me show you what this means. If we're looking, I'm going to do this one first. This is the delete, right? So if we look in the matrix, this is stuff that's not urgent, It doesn't have to be done right away, and it's also not important. What we're going to do with that stuff is we're just going to toss it, get rid of it, put it out of your system, right? Now, the next one we're going to talk about is the urgent and important stuff. This is the stuff that is like time sensitive. So let's say you have a closing coming up tomorrow and there's a problem with whatever. I don't know. The buyer went out and bought couches on credit, right? That's something you got to take care of right now. It's very important to close the deal, and it's also very urgent. So that's the stuff that we do immediately. The next thing is the delegation, right? So this is not as important, but it is urgent. So with these type of tasks, these are tasks that must be done. They are urgent to get done, but they don't require your specific skill set to do them. Someone says, can't see. Put it on speaker mode and you'll be able to see the screen. Can anybody else see the screen? Have I been talking the whole time with the slides not showing?
It's a
Okay,
little blurry.
blurry. Oh, these ones are short. You don't really need to read them. These are more for my notes. So well, I'll just move through this part pretty quick. So this is the delegation, right? This is that coordinator role.
Maybe you
This
can see it fine. Amanda said so. Just depends, Christian. You're all good, brother.
it's if you have Comcast for internet or AT&T. That's the difference here. I'm just joking, Brock. I'm poking fun at Brock. He's been having internet problems. So,
Tech.
guys, the last role, the last portion of this matrix is the not urgent but the important. Now, I want to focus here a little bit because these are tasks with unclear deadlines that contribute to long-term success. This is the strategy stuff. This is the stuff that has the major impact, but it's not like putting out a fire right now. And so what often happens, guys, is we get stuck in that urgent mode constantly. See, if we don't play the roles and know what role we're in, we get stuck in that urgent mode. But this not urgent and important mode is so important if you want to grow, if you want to build something, again, sustainable, right? So this is the long-term vision of the business. This is the stuff when you talk about like a Fortune 500 or a Fortune 100 company, this is where like the CEOs, the CFOs, the CMOs, this is where they live. They're not doing the sales calls. They're not cleaning the floors. They're not emptying the trashes. They're doing this stuff, the big picture, the visionary stuff, right? Steve Jobs wasn't in there programming towards the end, maybe at the beginning, but he wasn't in there programming the apps, right? He's driving long-term vision in the business. And so you may or may not have noticed this, but this all correlates to what we talked about earlier. So again, the urgent, the important, that's the producer stuff. The not important but urgent, that's the coordinator. And the not urgent but important is the strategist here. So how do we ascend through these roles? I'm going to give you 3 steps. Dang, we're already at time. Run a time audit, guys. Look at where you're spending your time in your business. Where are you spending your most time? Next is to identify some key higher role tasks that will have the highest impact on your business. And the last thing, this is very important, is schedule non-negotiable time to do that, to do those tasks, to play those roles in your business. So, with that being said, that's what I've got for you guys. I ran right up on time. Guys, Sherry, I knew I talked to you and Dee about Monday's class, but I think we're out of time here. I want to invite you guys to something Friday. I'm running a class. I put the link in the chat there if you're interested in it. It's Agents Financial Friday. Every Friday, I'm going to be hosting these at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to be talking this sort of stuff, business strategy, financial strategy for business owners, specifically real estate agents. So I would love to have you guys if this sort of thing is interesting to you. That being said, does anybody have anything they want to say, any takeaways or any ideas that came from this?
Hey, Christian, it's Michelle.
Hey, Michelle.
I just want to say thank you. I'm not a real estate agent, but the principles that you provide are something that is very helpful for anyone, no matter what their background. So
Right.
I just wanted to say thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. Yeah, guys, I was talking real estate, like I said, but you can apply this to any business you're in, any area of life too. It's not just business or finances, right?
I would also add, like audit yourself all. Like see where you're stuck in. See where you're having the difficulties of doing it. And really when you asked that question earlier, Christian, of like, what hat are you wearing? And honestly, majority of us are wearing all our hats. And
Mhm.
I read the book The Six Geniuses by Patrick Lenciani when I was with John Maxwell. And that is where the burnout takes place, is because you are doing every freaking task there is. And that hence why VA started to develop in my life, and why we're wanting to create a bigger version to help entrepreneurs, to help real estate agents, so this burnout doesn't happen, and not to freaking you spend so much time in every element. So I'm going to challenge y'all to audit yourself and go back and listen into where Christian was telling you, because so many people do this, and this is what happens in our business, and we see it over and over and over and over again. So really do a deep dive and looking at yourself, look in the mirror and audit your business to see where you are. I also strongly recommend reading that book, The Six Geniuses by Patrick Lenciani. Good job, Christian. I'll let you close this out, brother.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. I see a handful of you have registered for that class, so I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there Friday at 1 p.m. I will see you there. We did it last Monday. It was a great class. We're doing it again every single week. So I will see you there. I hope you all have a great Wednesday afternoon. See you guys.